Welcome everybody to the Lake Forest Park City Council work session for November 10th, 2022. At this time, I'll call to order the meeting, and do I hear the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Been moving second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. With that, before we start, this is going to be an interesting evening. You guys know how much I love having a split room on Zoom and in live. So be patient with me. If you want to talk, we've got you on the big screen here. So just remember that's the way we're kind of rolling through it tonight. So, and Matt's at home, and we have our best relief pitchers here. So we're in the bullpen tonight, and they're going to do a great job. So with that, we'll start the meeting. And on that, we're going to talk about draft resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the interlocal agreement with Yakima County Technology Service for offsite data storage. Our finance director, Lindsay Vaughn, is up there for us, and go ahead, Lindsay.
Thank you, Mayor. And so I'm going to go through this briefly. The council members that have been here are very familiar with this ILA. The ones who have not been, I just want to quickly walk through it. This is something that came about back in 2019 when we lost some of our data storage backup. And so we had to come up with a different solution. And when the IT manager at the time and I were walking through that process, we also identified that we were lacking kind of an offsite best practice for a cyber attack or a natural disaster, an offsite server in addition as backup. So with that, we went and continued to look at some options, and it looked like the best option at that time was the Yakima County Technology, which is an ILA that we present, that we are engaged with them in order to have service for internet and rack space in order to have these, our backup servers there, which we've discussed quite a few times during the budget process. All of that being said, this is, I think, the fourth interlocal agreement that we will sign with them. And the amount significantly did go up. And the reason that the cost did go up a significant amount is because we were only using a small amount of internet to start. And now we are increasing the internet to 50. To make sure that there are no hiccups with the internet connection. And then I do want to state under the fiscal and policy implications, in addition, that that we also have proposed within the agreement, within the ILA, or in this next upcoming budget. I haven't been on Zoom for a while, so I'm tripping over my words because I can't see you all. That cost did go up, but we did budget for the offsite server in the next proposed 2023-2024 server, because we repurposed old servers in order to have the option of having the offsite, knowing it was a short-term solution for eventually a longer-term solution, which we're presenting in this budget. And the reason that the one final thing that I'll say before I open it up for discussion is the reason that an amount that is under $4,500 is coming to you for discussion is because it is an interlocal agreement. That is the reason that it's coming before council. So anything that says ILA has to come before council and be voted on. And that, I believe, concludes my brief overview. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Lindsay at this time? Okay, anybody? I see no yes. Councilmember Fairtommy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Lindsay, for the presentation. Just wondering, what was the cost for the 10 megabyte per second rate last year?
Significantly less. It was like $1,600 for an annual cost. So the internet is the bulk of the cost of the interlocal agreement is the actual internet. I think it's under $1,000 for the rack space that we're paying for.
Councilmember Riddle.
Thank you. I did have one question. Under section 5A 4 and 5, it references that the customer will provide adequate workspace for support personnel and for ILA equipment. Have we identified those locations, and can we provide them if they're needed?
So state that again under 4.
5A 4 and 5A 5, or am I misunderstanding what those are referencing? It's page 7 of the ILA, I believe. It's attachment B, terms of service.
I might have to circle back with you on that. I'm
Okay.
not. I do, and the reason why this also is coming through to you on a work session is because we had one sentence that we were requesting to have removed, and they've since come back saying verbally they've gotten the okay from their legal department, which might be what you're referring to in here. And we are removing it. We are going to remove that sentence that they have agreed to remove. And that's it's on page 7 at the top, basically about liability. So they've granted our wish to remove that sentence. So that will be a change at the next council meeting that it comes forward on.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the dais? No? Anybody? I think the way we're going to work this tonight, I'm going to start on the dais on my right. I'll take my time. I won't be in my usual rush, and I'll move to the left, and then I'll move to the screen if that's okay with you guys. Make it a little easier on everybody. So nobody there, anybody on? Tom, Lori, you have anything? Okay, well then I guess you did great, Lindsay. Unfortunately, I have about another 10 things to do tonight, so save your voice.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we're going to move on to the discussion regarding reducing building and grading permit expiration periods from 1 year down to 6 months. Director Perigo, thank you.
Well, tonight we will be discussing the permit expiration that are set forth in the codes that we have. Specifically for the building permits. As you recall, we've gone through the permit fees for the building department to make sure those are in line with our current costs and how that should be set. And so tonight we're going to look at the expiration times that have been set for that also. So just a reminder, within Public Works, our Public Works Department, we do have the building department, and the building department consists of our building official and a permit coordinator. So you have 1.8 FTEs, and tonight we have 0.56 of those in the 56% of that department with us. Again, we've got again, Calvin's our building official, and then Desiree is our permit coordinator. She's again 80%. So it's a very small staff. And again, on an annual basis, we run roughly 800 permits. So quite a few permits run through with such a small staff. So for tonight, there's two main things we'll be looking at, reviewing the current permit expiration code and then discussing the proposed permit expiration code. Go through that kind of line by line and just make sure that everybody's on the same page and make sure we understand what that means and how that impacts our processes. So the objectives are pretty straightforward: improve and simplify our process, increase our consistency with other jurisdictions, as well as create internal efficiencies to again help and maintain our high level of permits that we do turn out with such a small staff. So just make sure that we understand what permit expiration means as when it comes to the building department is it's the beginning of the work that takes place. So work does not begin within the allowed time frame. That's when it expires. So if we say we have a 1 year expiration, work just has to start in that 1 year. And The inspection records is what tracks when that time frame starts. So if Calvin gets a call every 4 months, then they're definitely in compliance. If the builder or contractor or homeowner does not call within a 6-month period, then they would be out of compliance with that. So the expiration would hit if it's a 6-month time period. Or if work is suspended or abandoned for 180 days, that would expire the permit also. So there's a few things, again, very limited number of things that expires a permit. So for tonight, we're looking at the current Lake Forest Park code that we have right now, and just again, some of the highlights there. Currently, it expires 1 year from the date of issuance, and a request can be extended to extend the expiration date based on having a discussion with Calvin and having prior approval for that. Section B of that, every permit expired permits that have expired for less than 1 year may be renewed for a period for one additional year. And then for permits that are expired for longer than a year, a new permit must be obtained. So there's some key elements in there. Section C, we'll go through each of these paragraphs individually with how it's proposed as well as how it is now. And then paragraph C just basically states that the electrical, mechanical, and plumbing permits expire 180 days from the issuance period. No, and each of those permits, though, if they're tied to a building permit, then they go along with the building permit timeframe. So when we look at the current code that we have right now, again, it says every permit issued shall expire 1 year from the date of issuance. Again, the building official is authorized to extend it. So what we have shown here, again, on the timeline here, it's a 3-year timeline that I'm showing. At year 0, if you will, the permit is issued. So for 1 year, that permit is active. So they have that 1 year period to request an inspection to keep it going. The second section there, where it says extension period, that's the extension which the building official is authorized to get, which is another 6 months. So another 180 days. So at this point, we're looking at an entire period before they even have to start, if they do get the extension, is 1.5 years. Furthermore, in section B, paragraph B, it says that let's see here. This is when it gets kind of fuzzy with some of the way it's worded. There is every permit which has been expired for less than 1 year may be renewed for 1 additional year. So what they're saying here is that between year 1 and 2, that's the expiration period. So it's a full year above and beyond the initial 1 year. And then they can be granted another year. So in theory, they could be, this permit could be pushed out for a total of 3 years before any work has to take place, which is obviously going to be a burden for our staff maintaining that length of time for, depending on how many permits we have that run that out. So that's a long time for us to not have any work done, but have an open permit. That takes care of our current code. That's how it's currently written. Again, could last for 3 years before work has to take place. So in the proposed permit expiration, we're looking at having all the permits expire within 180 days, but there would be an extension for another 180 days based on the building official having a schedule similar to what we had before, but again, shorten the time period to 180 days. And for, again, paragraph A, we're saying that every building permit shall expire after 360 days. So full stop, 1 year, they have to do some work on the project and maintain that by having inspections. And in paragraph B, the building permit may be renewed for a period of 180 days. Again, that's provided there's no changes to it. They're allowed that 180 days, again, another 6 months. So for permits that have expired, we're saying that a new permit would have to be obtained. if they let it expire, whether it be after the 6-month period or after their extension, or if they go 180 days without any work on the project, then it'll expire. And again, paragraph C, we have no changes proposed for that. So what that looks like. What that looks like if you compare the current to the proposed, current is on top, proposed is on bottom. You see that we have what I'm calling the active period, which is they're allowed the 6-month period for the initial approval of the permit. And they could qualify for an extra 180 days, basically 1 year before they would have to do any work on the project. Again, as long as they keep calling for an inspection, the clock keeps going. They have another 6 months, another 6 months, another 6 months. So what this would look like is after that 1 year, they would fall into that renewal period. So they would have to go back and apply for a new permit. So what this does for us is it really shortens the period in which permits can go outstanding without any work taking place. And that really would be a huge help for inspections and again, our staff. So with these changes, the anticipated improvements, we're looking at improved customer service by we're going to simplify the process. So there's not this discrepancy or this notion that, we can spend up to 3 years before doing any work on the project. It's more consistent with the IBC and other jurisdictions. It also helps us with our archiving of all the documentation that we have and maintain. There's different things that we have to maintain, whether it be for 90 days or 6 years or some in perpetuity. So that would help push that along as well. So those are the major improvements that we'd like to see within our department. And with that, open up for discussion.
Council, okay, to my right, Councilmember Cassover.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for a good presentation here, Jeff. I have a couple of questions, and these are really because I've been through this process myself in the last couple of years. I did something fairly unusual, which is to apply for the building permit before I had a building contractor. I just had the architect, right? So then it took some months to identify the contractor, to get the bid, and to figure out what the start date was. So if a homeowner goes through that kind of process, and we're stretching into the 6 months, the homeowner can ask for the extension, right, before the project starts.
Correct. I would say that would be a fair statement. Yes.
Okay. And then once the project starts and there are building inspections that take place, if it doesn't finish within the year, within that next 6 months,
No.
is there a new building permit that has to be applied
No,
for?
there is not. No, as long as there's either inspections or there's coordination with our building official, extending that expiration period is just to start the project.
To start the project,
Yes.
is not to complete it.
Correct.
All right, good.
Absolutely.
That wasn't clear to me in
Okay.
the presentation. So, okay. So my observation is that things are taking a long time these days to happen. I don't know if that will change as the economy changes, but what do you think about that? Is this 6 month kind of period is working in other cities? Doesn't seem to be a problem elsewhere.
I would say there's a number of jurisdictions around here that actually have 6 months as their timeframe with another 6 month extension.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I like I said, things just drag on. So it made me wonder. Thank you.
Anybody else to my right? Yes, Councilmember Goldman.
Yes, thanks for the presentation. I especially like the graphics where you had like the number of years that made it very easy to understand. And Councilmember Cassover took my main question. So it's my other question would be, do you know roughly what percentage of current building permits would fall into this window where under the current system, they would not have expired, but under the new system, they would have expired?
I don't think we have great data on that, but I think anecdotally we can say that most people probably comply with the first 6 months, and the vast majority would definitely fall within the first year.
Okay, thanks.
Is anybody that direction? Councilmember Riddle, then Councilmember Lebo.
So I have two questions. One is about the statement of the will expire no later than 360 days. What if someone has a construction schedule and they get more than 180 days for their initial period? Can they extend, like, let's say they get 270 days? And then is it 180 days extension after that, or is it only the 90 because we've got that hard 360-day cutoff? So what if it's a project that they come to you with a construction schedule, but they know they're not going to start within the 6 months and you approve it? Does it get cut off at that 360, even if they get a second extension?
Well, if they come to us with a plan and it shows that they won't be able to start until 9 months in, that's perfectly fine. Again, as long as it's within our first year.
But if they don't, they get to that 9 months and there's been a concrete strike, so they can't start.
But
And they want a second extension, do they
The-
get cut off at 360 or can they get a full 6-month extension?
that could be something that they would work with the building official and determine what's appropriate. Again, if there's a strike or those sorts of things, then obviously there's a bigger problems, not just for them, but for other folks. So that would be fine. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's challenge with the language in A then where every building permit shall expire no later than 360 days from the date of issuance. It sounds like that's a little firm and doesn't allow for any flexibility. So I'd like you to consider what that would look like under those odd circumstances, which would be our larger projects that would probably be needing that. And then just to clarify for those of us and to remind me, permit issuance is after they've done the review. So you've submitted your documents, they've done the review and they say, your permit is ready to be picked up.
Yes.
Is it at the moment you're done, or is it when they come and pay? The minute they pay. That's the issuance.
Yep.
Is there a time period between when you are done with your review that they have to come and pay?
No,
Okay,
no, it can be started any stuff fire, so.
Sorry, just a quick point of order. I'm not sure if the people on Zoom were able
Oh.
to hear Calvin if he's talking from the seats.
Sorry.
so the question was about timing of what is a permit issuance, and it's not when you've completed your review,
No.
but it's when they come in and
that's
pay
a-
and get the
that's
piece of
still
paper.
in the application stage until I approve it, until all the departments have approved it, we sign it off. Once the homeowner pays their receipt and we invoice them, receipt them, all that. And they come in and pick their permit up, that's when the clock starts.
Okay. And
Now,
we,
again, all that's saying is that you have 180 days to start your job. That's not saying if your mom gets sick and something comes up and you call me up and say, I've got this going on, we'll gladly give you 180 days. The reason for some of this is that we have a lot of permits where people there's a lag between contractors and homeowners, or we end up with contractors that just go, I can get another year extension, and they leave a big hole in the ground with all kinds of problems for me, and I'm having to answer to Phil and all the whole neighborhood and all that. So if I can catch them at 180 days or even at a year, it really helps us and the neighborhoods that are around here. This very rarely happens, but 180 days is standard in any jurisdiction. That's straight out of the building code. Shoreline's 180 days. Kenmore's 180 days. We're the only ones here that are saying, go ahead, which is great. You can have your permit for a year versus 180 days. The other part of that, I'll jump around real quick, is when I go do an inspection, that permit stays active as long as you get me doing inspections for you. If it takes a year and a half or 2 years, at one point I might go, hey, we need to update your permit. It doesn't cost anything. We're not asking for a full permit fee or any of that. Just an administrative fee to take it up. But I've had permits take 2 years,
Mhm.
you know? Pulte, on different buildings, but yeah. So
Thank you,
I hope
Calvin.
that helped there.
And yes,
Councilmember Lebo.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up. You'd mentioned other jurisdictions, and I'm glad to hear that Shoreline and Kenmore would be similar.
Yes.
Do we see it also in Seattle and Bothell and Woodinville? Just to get an understanding of what we see from our local communities in terms of time frame.
I don't know what Seattle's is because their code derives off the building code. I don't know what their time period is.
I would be interested to understand if it's just Kenmore and Shoreline, or if Bothell and Kirkland are similar. Yeah, the other is
Briar is also.
Briar's also.
Yeah.
Bothel's 180 days. too.
Okay. Oh, that's good to hear. Is there any thought to having an administrative cost to extend the permit? And again, it goes back to that if you purchase a permit that it's a city service that should be recovered in our costs. And so I don't want us to spend money that others are taking advantage of without having some sort of administrative cost.
Yeah, we typically, if the permit is whatever date it's supposed to expire. And I'm not talking about jobs that have active inspections
Right.
going on. What we've done so far in 18 years I've been here is we've given them an administrative extension of what the administrative cost is, which I think is 85 an hour or something like that. That's for the permit tech to redo your permit, change everything around in the computer and hand you a new permit. But it's still referencing the old permit number.
Yeah, just to be clear,
So
so you
we-
do
we-
charge an administrative cost that's reflective of your services to extend the permit.
Yes, under this proposal, an extension would require
Okay.
an
And
administrative
then
fee.
finally, is there, some jurisdictions have a duration for the total length of the permit. So even if you start, you still have to finish within a certain number
Some
of,
do,
some do. Is there any thought to that?
no.
No.
Every job is. It's hard to. I can have a condo building that takes 2 years. I can have a house that takes 6 months, or I can have a custom home that takes 1.5 years. Or I've had additions and remodels that have taken a full year, so.
The reason I'm asking is some jurisdictions do put a time limit on permits that you
Yes,
have
they
to go
do.
and get renewed
Yeah,
and pay additional cost for it. So,
well, they give you a date from start to finish.
Yes.
Here's, you still have to follow code every 180 days, but they
Yes.
say your permit is only good for this amount of days. Maximum, or you redo it all over.
On the screen, Councilmember Bodie, Councilmember French. Nothing? Okay. We all good here? Okay, seeing nothing else. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Calvin. Okay, with that, we have a chance to adjourn. I think we will. As I was saying before you got here, Councilmember Lebo, this is, we're a lot of people are out tonight, so we're gonna be working our way through this, so we'll do our best, and I'm gonna let us adjourn. Everybody take a break. You guys on Zoom, go back to bed or whatever you guys have been doing all last week, and then we'll get started back in about a half hour, okay? Thank you.